Similar to the last presentation, kind of layout similar, but we're just going to explain, we're going to start with explaining combination treatments and how important they are. You know, Cape Seal is a combination treatment. So we're going to start there explaining what they are and what makes them good and going to give you more options for your roads. With that, combination treatments, it's not the thing 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2 with our treatments. Hey, sometimes you do 1 or 2 surface preps and then you combine it with another treatment. Hey, that might give you, not going to give you double the life, but it's definitely going to give you longer life than what you would have gotten if you just did 1 treatment on its own. So this slide's important. I mean, the slides on the left side, you know, they're kind of our surface prep type of treatments, you know, whether you're spot chip sealing, rubberized crack seal, mastic for wide cracks, micro rut fill, that's a pre-treatment. You could also use the longitudinal joint repair. You know, there's a few methods there. One is with microsurfacing, you know, one's with hot pour mastic. But those are our important surface preps, you know, that we consider as combination treatments, regardless of if it's a Cape Seal or if it's ultra thin or if it's a microsurfacing. You can use any of those surface prep treatments prior to any of the other treatments. You know, and then you see all the different treatment options you have to pick from. You know, I think that's one benefit that this organization brings to PennDOT is we have a lot of tools for you to pick from. And the right tool might be based on the condition of the road, might be based on your budget. Hey, if you are looking for just a Band-Aid type approach, we have those. If you want something long-term and you want the exact right product for a road, we can guide you. We can help you pick the right product. But that's the key, is picking the right treatment. But remembering that with all our treatments, combinations are a good solution to a lot of problems. So the one we're going to talk about today is a Cape Seal. You know, so we have already heard the chip seal presentation. You guys know chip seals. Hey, how do you make a chip seal better? You cap it with something. You know, you can cap it with a fog seal, or the next step up is cap it with either a type A microsurfacing or a type 2 slurry. So that's basically what we're going to talk about here is with Cape Seals. You know, why do you want to use combination treatments? You know, it's going to extend the life. You know, if you're going to chip seal a road and you don't crack seal it first and you have wide cracks, hey, those cracks are going to come back. So, hey, you want to use those surface prep treatments to be able to extend the life of the maintenance treatment you select. It allows you, combination treatments allows you to target multiple distresses. So give you an example, for a Cape Seal, hey, you want to chip seal the road and cap it with a slurry or micro, but maybe that's not in the budget. Maybe you say, you know what, I just have these few areas that could benefit from a chip seal. Maybe I'm just going to spot treat some areas and then do a single microsurfacing. You know, so there's a lot of flexibility based on the budget, based on the exact condition of road, and based on the traffic. And I'd say one other thing is public perception. You know, so chip seal is the best bang for your buck. It covers the most ground with the least amount of money. But then to be able to utilize that chip seal more, that's what a Cape Seal does for you. You know, now you can use that. You can use that inexpensive chip seal in areas you wouldn't have considered using it otherwise. You know, higher traffic settings or urban and residential roads. But it's basically a 2-step pavement preservation treatment. You know, the first step is that chip seal. Install the chip seal. Secondly, you're going to sweep it, and then you're going to cap it with a micro, or you can cap it with a type 2 slurry. The time between the 2 steps, different contractors may have differing opinions. If you're doing a conventional PennDOT chip seal with a number 8 aggregate, typically you'll like to see that chip seal sit for about a week till you can successfully, the stone gets a chance to embed, till you can sweep it, remove the loose aggregate, and then you could schedule to cap it, after that time frame. Of course, everybody wants to cap it as quick as possible. You can speed that up, but I'll get into that later, maybe using a different type of stone that allows you to sweep it sooner. But typically, a week to 2 is what we like to see. Now we'll talk about when to use a cape seal. So cape seals, you're in that B to C range of condition of road. So it's real similar type conditions as the ultra thin. You know, the only difference is cape seal is not going to correct profile. So if the road's out of profile, hey, then you're going to choose the ultra thin. If the road has a good profile, but hey, it needs a surface seal, but you don't want the chip seal look when you're done, that's when you'd start looking at a cape seal. But it's that stop. It bridges the gap, you know, between a single chip seal and the ultra thin. You know, it kind of fills that gap in between. You know, so in a perfect world, you're chip sealing your roads 5, 6, 7 years after you pave them, or you're doing a single micro or some type of single maintenance treatment. Hey, if you let the roads deteriorate a little bit further and now all of a sudden there's more cracking on the road, that's when you're going to want to look to a two-step treatment. You know, whether it's a double chip seal or whether it's a chip followed by a slurry or a chip followed by a fog. But you're not to the point where you need a thin overlay. So that's kind of the sweet spot for cape seal. These are road conditions, you know, suitable roads. But like I said, it's similar as the ultra thin type roads. But I'd say the difference is you want a good profile. You know, a cape seal when it's completed, it'll look like a paved road as long as the profile's good. If the road's out of profile, you really should correct that first or pick a different treatment. You know, so you could do a double micro. So hey, you could chip seal. You know, you could do a double micro to try to fill the ruts, but then you just have to do the math and figure out, okay, well, till I chip and do a double micro, am I close to the ultra thin price? You know, so that's where the math part comes in. It comes into play, but there's a lot of flexibility in all the treatments that we do. So there's no right or wrong answer, but this just gives you more flexibility, allows you to use the chip seal in areas where you wouldn't have used it before. This is where to use a cape seal. So this is a picture of Lehigh County's map and the way you guys classify your roads. But cape seals are good for minor arterial, major and minor collector roads. You know, so here's a picture. It's not, I don't know if it's clear for you, but it's basically city of Allentown and then the township to the north, North Whitehall. You know, so areas, when you get into those high urban areas where chip seals aren't too popular, hey, then that's when you're going to want to think about a cape seal. You know, get that chip seal down, seal that road. That's really the benefit. But then you're going to sweep it and cap it with a slurry, cap it with a micro. You know, so I'd say all those roads that are green and purple, you know, are going to be most of the roads you're going to target with a cape seal. You can do lower ADT roads too, but you get to the lower ADT roads, the best bang for your buck is still the chip seal. You know, so you're looking to expand the usage of chip seal, and the way you expand the usage is by capping it with something else. So, but you know, we say you can do a cape seal up to 10,000. You know, it's going to depend on materials and the exact type of road you're doing, but I would say that'd be about the upper limit. Here's some examples of where to use it. You know, so you got, you know, a minor arterial road. You know, might be higher speed traffic. You know, more of a rural setting. You know, that's a good example. In Bucks County last year, we chipped and fogged Route 563. So if you think of like your 3-digit SRs, hey, a chip with a fog on a high ADT road works, but you could also substitute and use a cape seal. You know, so maybe you want a smoother finish when you're done. You know, that would be the difference. If you want something that's smoother and looks more like hot mix, then you'll go the cape seal route. Minor collector road, that was a road in Berks County we did for Spring Township. But, you know, kind of a heavy residential, you know, urban type setting where, you know, the benefits the chip seal, but the aesthetics of the slurry and the micro. You know, that's bringing the best of both worlds together. When you combine a chip seal with a micro, it helps to stop reflective cracking. You know, so if you did a micro on its own, hey, you might be more limited. You know, you want to target those roads that are in the B category that have very little cracking. When you get to roads that have a little more cracking, hey, then you can still do the micro in those settings, but hey, do the chip seal first. The chip seal is going to help stop those reflective cracks from coming back. Working cracks are still going to come back. You can't stop a working crack, so if you have working cracks, you still should rubberize seal those. If they're wide, you're going to want to use the mastic. But all the fine cracks, they won't come back. Another good place to use a cape seal is if you have a PennDOT road that goes through a town. So if you pick any little borough that you're gonna, you got a PennDOT street that goes to Main Street, that's a perfect type of setting, more that higher density setting where maybe a chip and a fog on its own isn't as good because there's a lot of Orange Street parking. Then maybe you take a step up and go, cap it with a slurry. You can do development setting roads too, so we do a lot of cape seals for local municipalities, for their development roads. Areas where, hey, they need a chip seal, but they don't want the headaches of the chip seal, As far as considerations, site selection, the key thing to remember is the limiting factor is still the chip seal. So you still got to be able to successfully chip seal that road. Give it time to be swept for the stone to embed till you can cap it with a slurry. So you're still going to be, and that's why we say less than 10,000 cars per day. And that's the reason for that is that, hey, you still got to be able to successfully apply that chip seal, sweep it, and then apply the slurry. It's not a candidate if there's severe rutting. Then you're not looking at the right product. If there's shoving or loss of profile, then you got to look for another treatment. Maybe you have to spot level some areas, or maybe it's an ultra thin candidate. So the roads overall, you want them to have a good profile to be successful with a cape seal. But same prep work as ultra thin. Any areas that need base repair, mill and patch them with 19 millimeter. Rubberized sealer for any of the working cracks. Non-working cracks, you don't have to seal, leave those go. The chip seal will take care of those. Hot pour mastic for wide cracks. Another good place you could use a combination treatment, whether that combination treatment's a cape seal or whether it's just a double application chip seal, is the high wrap mixes that you've been experimenting with. So you could use a high wrap 19 millimeter super pave, place that mix and then cap it with a cape seal. You have, at the end of the day, that high wrap mix, you don't want to leave it leave it exposed, but you could use a combination treatment, whether it's a single chip with a fog or a double chip or a chip with a slurry or a chip with a microsurfacing. So the first step, we're going to talk about the chip seal portion. So current PennDOT spec is an AASHTO number 8 for your chip seal. So if you look at that picture on the right, that's an AASHTO number 8. If you read every piece of literature in the United States, they want you to use a uniformly graded cubical aggregate to do your seal coat. So how many number 8 aggregates are uniformly graded in cubical? Not too many where I live. So if you want a higher performing product, you have to advocate for higher performing materials. So I would say a cape seal on roads that get less than 3,500 cars a day, your AASHTO number 8 is a fine choice. There's not going to be any issues. You can chip seal that road, sweep it, traffic's low at low volume enough, cap it with the slurry, a couple weeks later, you're fine. If you want to target your higher ADT roads and do that inexpensive maintenance treatment on a wider band of your network, you have to improve the quality of materials. So hopefully we can work together to making that happen. But we've been having a lot of success using a single size cubical 3/8 inch aggregate. It's readily available. Any producer that produces an SMA, that's a single size cubical aggregate. Any producer that produces the ultra thin bonded wearing, hey, they're producing that single size cubical durable stone. So the key is just getting it that it's clean enough to use for a chip seal. But by using that durable 3/8 cubical stone, you have a uniform application rate. So with chip seal, you're always trying to pick the nominal size of that stone. So if you have an AASHTO 8 and you have an 1/8 inch stone that's a sliver, it's going to take a lot less oil to glue that road to the surface than if you have a larger stone that's 3/8 of an inch. So as a chip seal contractor, you're trying to pick the median. If I glue the small one down, maybe the big ones won't stay. If I try to glue the big one down, it's going to bleed in the wheel tracks. So that's the reason that you can't use an AASHTO number 8 as is on high ADT roads, or you're going to have bleeding in the wheel tracks, or if you don't have bleeding in the wheel tracks, you could have stone loss on the edges. So you want to use a uniformly graded stone, that where all the aggregates are a similar size, so that way your application rate of emulsion, the design method works. If you ever read the chip seal design method, it's based on aggregate being single size and cubical. That's the only way the method truly works. So we're big advocates of that. So that works with cape seals too. So I'd say on your roads that are 5 to 10,000, if you want to cape seal those or fog seal those, consider using a higher quality aggregate. Then you get to step 2. The benefit of using that cubical single size stone is you truly can sweep it the next day. By using that uniformly graded stone, we can apply a little bit more asphalt emulsion to glue that rock down and successfully sweep it within 24 hours. Once you sweep it, then that's when you can cap it with either the micro or slurry. There's a little personal preference there. I would say you'd utilize a type A micro on higher ADT settings, or if the road's more slightly out of profile. Because the difference between the micro and the slurry is with the micro, you can stack aggregates, so you can lay that lift at 25 pounds. If you have a road and it truly has a good profile, you can get away with the type 2 slurry, because personally, it's like the benefits of chip seal, and when you have that cubical rock, you create that macro texture. Now you're just using that slurry or micro basically to fill the voids of that chip seal. So laying the slurry any deeper or the micro any deeper adds no benefit if you have a nice profile. So that's our take is we do a lot of the type 2 slurry for our cape seals, but on occasion you can use the micro. So it just depends on ADT and condition of road and what the existing condition is. What the rutting is on the road. But the main difference is, between a slurry and a micro is the slurry is not polymer modified. With the chemistry, we use a quick set slurry. So, hey, the set time's the same, whether we use a micro or the slurry system. Truly the difference is the depth. With the slurry, you're laying it thinner. You're not stacking that aggregate. It's not polymer modified. It is a little more asphalt rich. It's another reason we use a type 2 slurry, especially on the low volume roads. So your low volume roads, you get a better seal. That slurry is a little more forgiving because there's a little more emulsion in that mix compared to the micro mix. But you get on your higher ADT roads and you have some wheel rutting, then you're going to want to use the type A micro to cap that chip seal. The benefits of the cape seal and approximate cost. But I would say approximate cost, you're probably $5 to $6 a square yard. Every job's different, every location's different, but just to give you a rough idea, a chip with a fog, maybe you're $3 to $4 a square yard, depending on the setting, depending on the aggregates. So hey, the next step up in cost and the next step up in product would be the cape seal. You're probably $5 to $6 a square yard. Ultra thin, we didn't talk about price there, but you're probably $8.50 to $9.50 a square yard. So you can see that all three of those products are used in similar settings. But you got options. You have options in price. You have options in the finished surface. But look at the surface you get. So you get the benefit, the sealing qualities of a chip seal that we all love and we all know work. But you get the surface texture of a microsurfacing. So that's basically, you get that smooth black finish that Chris was talking about in all his micro slides. You get that finished surface when you're done, as long as you have a good profile. That's the key. The surface of the microsurfacing, it always looks better. It always looks more uniform if the road has a good profile. Once it's out of profile, hey, then you have to rut fill it first. Get that to where you can have a uniform, depth of material you're laying, or if the ruts are too deep, then maybe it's not the right choice. Then maybe you're picking the ultra thin. But this is a very good solution. We're excited that PennDOT wants to try to get a Cape Seal spec adopted. A workaround, all our local municipalities who've been using liquid fuels to pay for this treatment for past 12, 13 years that we've been doing it, hey, they'll bid a single bituminous seal coat per the 408, and then they'll bid the type 2 slurry per the 408. So just combining the two makes the Cape Seal. So I think it's important to get a spec that, because when you combine the two, there are things you have to consider. It's like you wouldn't want one contractor doing the chip seal and one doing the slurry, because then you get people pointing the finger. So sometimes having one uniform spec that makes it clear about the timing. Another thing is with line striping, it's like you don't want to wait more than 2 weeks to cap the slurry. So it's like, if you have one contractor, he can do the chip seal, sweep it, and cap it with the slurry, so you get your lines back within 2 weeks. So it'll be good to get a PennDOT spec. Anybody have any questions? That's it. Thank you.